The Presence in the Shadows by Griz Calderon. In a quiet, dimly lit room, the air seemed to grow heavier, as if burdened by an unseen weight. For one man, John, this heaviness was more than just a feeling. It was a presence. He wasn't dying, nor were any loved ones, nor was anyone close to him near death, but he could sense it, the unmistakable chill of the Grim Reaper in the room. John sat in his study, in a much-loved wingback chair, its worn burgundy leather nestled among the dusty volumes of old books and mementos from a life well lived. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second tapping against the silence. Outside, the world continued its usual ebb and flow, but here, within these four walls, time seemed to slow, each tick amplifying the sense of an unseen observer. John's sensitivity to the supernatural had always both unsettled and fascinated him. Tonight, however, the feeling was different. It was as if the shadows themselves had come alive. His eyes swept the dark room, trying to pinpoint the source of his unease. His gaze fell on a dimly lit corner of the room, its shadows too deep for the antique lamp perched on a Queen Anne table to brighten. There, between the table and an old armchair, he thought he saw a figure, a silhouette cloaked in darkness. His heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. This was not the first time he had sensed something otherworldly, but it was the first time the presence felt so personal. The Reaper was intrigued. Somehow John could sense his presence. The living could not normally detect him unless they were on the brink of death. Yet, here was John, very much alive, staring directly at him. He hadn't come to collect John's soul. Not yet. He'd come to answer John's questions. John, feeling a strange mix of fear and curiosity, decided to speak. "I know you're there," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I don't know why, but I can feel you. Why are you here?" The Reaper, unused to such direct interaction with the living, remained silent. He caused a wave of calm to wash over John, a silent assurance that he meant no harm, and at the same time confirming to John that he was indeed there. John felt the change in the air, the heaviness lifting slightly, replaced by an inexplicable sense of peace. The Reaper stood silently, his presence a blend of the eternal and the ephemeral. Eternal because he had existed since the dawn of life. Time did not bind him. He had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations and was tied to the endless cycle of life and death. His ephemeral nature allowed him to be present in the fleeting moments of each individual's final breath. His existence was defined by his duty, to collect the souls of the deceased and guide them to the afterlife. This role was not one of malice, but of solemn responsibility, ensuring the balance of the universe was maintained. John did not know about the Reaper's many extraordinary abilities, like the power to manipulate time, enabling him to be present at countless deaths simultaneously. He was able to operate in a dimension where time was fluid, each moment containing infinite smaller ones. He could slow it down or speed it up as needed. Using this power, each soul experienced him as if he were solely there for them. Every being with a soul felt his unique, undivided presence. He could appear wherever he wished, sometimes choosing to experience interactions in their entirety, even as he fulfilled his duty. Tonight, he chose to visit John. The Reaper had an innate sense of when a soul needed to be collected. He knew ahead of time when and where he would come to guide a soul to the afterlife. The minutes he spent visiting John were fractal moments of time, and he was exactly where he needed to be. John wondered why the Reaper was in his presence. Didn't he have somewhere else to be? John thought about the history of the Grim Reaper, and how people have believed in the Grim Reaper, giving form to their fears and the inevitability of death. Different cultures and religions had depicted him in various ways, but all shared the common theme of a being who guides souls to the afterlife. In some traditions, he was seen as a dark and menacing figure, while in others, he was seen as a compassionate guide. Despite these differing views, the Reaper has always existed, long before people had given him a name. John believed the Reaper would one day come for his soul. He hoped today was not that day. He firmly believed in his existence. The presence he felt was not here to take him, but to communicate something deeper. As John continued to gaze into the corner, he began to understand. The Reaper did exist, and one day he would come to collect his soul. John thought about the nature of souls, their journey beyond life, and the mysterious figure who guided them. John couldn't help himself. "Do you collect more than just human souls?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Reaper's mind flickered with the countless souls he had guided, humans, animals, even ancient beings forgotten by time. He was there to guide each one to the next chapter. John closed his eyes, allowing his other senses to take over. He could almost see the glowing threads of life the Reaper perceived, each one with its unique essence. He felt the faint traces of emotions, hope, fear, love, and despair, intermingling in the room. He opened his eyes and whispered, "Thank you." He wasn't entirely sure why he said it, but it felt right. He was grateful for the silent guardian of souls, the one who ensured the cycle of life and death remained unbroken. Satisfied that their brief connection had imparted a sliver of understanding, the Reaper began to withdraw. He had other souls to attend to, other lives to guide. As his presence faded, the room grew lighter, the shadows retreating to their usual places. John felt the change, the return of normalcy. Yet, he knew that his life had been touched by something profound. He would never forget the night he sensed the presence in the shadows, the silent guardian who had, for a moment, bridged the gap between life and death to answer his question. Before this encounter, John had feared death, as most humans do. But now, after feeling the Reaper's presence, he found his fear had diminished. He understood that death was not something to dread, but a part of the natural cycle. This realization allowed him to enjoy life more fully, focusing on living rather than the inevitable end. John continued his life with a renewed sense of purpose and peace, knowing that when his time came, he would be guided by the same calm presence he had felt that night. The Grim Reaper, ever vigilant, returned to his eternal duty, forever watching over the fragile balance of existence. The end.